Well, hello and welcome to the No Filter Needed podcast, where we cut the fluff, expel those myths, and kick unobtainable standards to the curb. I am your host, Camilla Collins, self-image consultant, author, and founder of multiple beauty and creative entertainment agencies. I am super passionate about empowering people to change their self-perception and reimagine not just the beauty, but the huge amount of power within themselves. And this podcast is in support of my mission to do just that. Hi guys, welcome back. So I'm actually going to have to apologise in advance for the quality of sound on this one. Zoom is not a friend to podcast recordings, I have discovered. And I'm actually speaking to you underneath my duvet right now, which is a temporary setup until I can build something a little more sound recording friendly in the office. But I hope you can bear with it because we've got a great little chat coming up around anxiety in quarantine and battling with being creative at this time. In today's episode, I have the lovely Andy Napleton on the line, who is a videographer from London. And Andy has actually been working with me for, I think, over 2 years now. He creates all my promo videos, and he's just an all-round superstar and has become a wonderful friend. And he posted a very honest video on YouTube sharing his personal struggles during lockdown. So I really wanted to bring him in for a chat around mental health in self-isolation. So Andy, welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here and be able to chat to your lovely face again.
Yeah. And how's things on your end? You good?
Yeah, not too bad. Definitely on an uptick now. Obviously, living in quarantine is not ideal, but we're all doing what we can just to survive at this point, I think, which is exactly the point, just to kind of carry on and try and live a normal life as much as possible.
Despite you having all the positive vibes and the biggest can-do attitude, which I, just attracted you to me in the first place. And I was like, oh, I need this guy in my life, in my business. I want to work with him all the time. You've had your struggles with mental health, haven't you, in the past? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's. I've kind of struggled with anxiety for a very, very long time, and my way of dealing with anxiety is to just kind of keep doing things. So the fact that when this all kind of started, I was like, right, okay, this is a great opportunity for me because I can make a video. I challenged myself to make a video every single day. Well, it didn't last. But I made a video every day for 7 days. And it was brilliant because every morning I got up and I had this purpose of getting up, which was like, right, today I'm going to make something. And it wouldn't really matter what that content was. It was just get up and use this time, use every minute of the day to make yourself better, make yourself more more attractive for when the quarantine ends, because everyone is going to be going back into work. So that was my attitude. But because suddenly it was like, right, every day is looking kind of the same, and I am not really a creature of habit. Like, I struggle with a hardcore routine. So I woke up on a Sunday and I just lost all this motivation. And that has happened in the past, where it then sends me down a kind of a bit of a spiral, bit of a rabbit hole of, okay, well, I'm feeling really anxious, and to stop myself feeling anxious, I'm gonna either do loads or do nothing. Those are the two modes that I would have, and unfortunately the latter took hold, and I really struggled to kind of pull myself out of it. But I've done that in the past a lot, where it's gotten so much that you have to take a back seat and you have to stop. I was very much addicted to work. Like, that was my escape almost, and I'm not medicated for anxiety or anything like that. Like, it was all very much off my own back of eating well, exercise, and working. Those were my 3 coping mechanisms. And then suddenly when the work stopped, so did the healthy eating, and so did the exercise. And all of those support structures that I'd put in place over the years, I mean, we're talking like for the last 5 or 6 years, I have never had a period of my life where it has felt like it does now, where it's like in the back of my mind, I have this notion of, but you don't have to get up today. Do you know what I mean? You're like, I don't have to get up. I don't have to do anything, because tomorrow it's going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? Particularly because, I mean, we just, never in a million years did we think the entire planet could change as it has. And so much uncertainty. It's not like, oh, I'm taking a bit of career break or something's going on at work. I mean, it's just so on such a global level. And in terms of opportunity and growth, I find it equally exciting for what could be and what could become, as well as completely just mind-boggling and potentially and anxiety inducing of the unknown. And we're so reliant on, we're creatures of habit. We're so reliant on our routines, and particularly speaking about addiction, I have my addictive tendencies, and I just swap them about. And I was in rehab at the Priory over 10 years ago now, about 11 years ago. And that's where I learned a lot in that place. And the one thing was, you go in with one addiction and you come out with every addiction, because addiction, if you put one thing down, you'll put it into something else. So if you're, controlling your weight with food, then you could, pick up drinking, or you pick up gambling, or you switch from gambling to food or sex or love. And it just, I have to be so mindful of myself to keep kind of everything balanced, and more the awareness of, if something goes, I have to make sure I'm not going into, and it could be a relationship, or it could be just a bad behavioral pattern, to fill that void and just be very aware. I think awareness is really, really key for all of us at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it is, well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly the thing, that you don't want to swap one addiction for another, because I'm certainly guilty of doing that. Like, I will go through phases of hardcore exercise where I'll kind of go every day or twice a day to the gym, or do some form of exercise, and then I'll wake up one day and go, no, I'm not going to do that, and I'll binge eat for a month. Like, I've always struggled with balance, and especially at a time like now, where nothing is balanced. I don't know where the next job is coming from. How can I possibly be balanced in my home life when all I have now is my home life? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just knocked over the scales, really, completely. And it's just working out how to try and incorporate other things and create balance in another way. And on the sort of artistic, creative level, I was actually had a call early this morning, and a sculptor friend of mine, she's obviously packed up. She's not been in her workshop, and she's highly creative, and that, I think, for creative people, it's a huge outlet for our emotions as well. And so subsequently, she's been completely isolating, not been outside, and not creating any art either. And we just said, you've got to create something, because that's obviously really, really important to you. Otherwise your mind is going to take you to some strange places, because all that energy is balled up inside, and it's going to do damage. It's going to do damage internally,
and it's not being diverted anywhere. That's the thing. All of that creativity, all of that passion is still there, but because it's not going anywhere, it's just going to build up, and all you're going to end up getting is, well, depressed, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even, people that aren't in a creative profession, people draw and paint for fun. I think now is, I think everybody should be doing some form of creativity and getting in that kind of flow space, just to allow sort of feelings out, or even journaling, creative writing, I think, is another sort of great tool that people can do. And I was up early doing my morning pages. I woke up earlier than normal, and it just helps to just get it sort of down on paper. And when you put something physical, I don't know, it's a creating thing, like something in your mind, and you make a physical product out of it, whether it's a piece of written work or a drawing or something, it takes it away from your body. So it takes those kind of emotions out. And I just think it's a really, really useful tool. And I believe we're all creative at heart, and art can't be wrong.
And I think anything can be creative as well. I think that's the really important thing, is I think that with people who don't have creative careers or particularly creative hobbies, they think, well, I can't possibly be creative because either I never studied it or I can't make something from nothing. And like you just said, you can create art out of anything. I mean, one of the videos that I made during this quarantine was about making a cup of tea, and
I love that video.
Yeah, that was the thing, is I took my dog out for a walk in the morning, and while I was out, I was like, I want to make something that's really, really silly and over the top. But I was like, what can I make at home? And when I got home, my housemate was like, was literally just like, oh, do you want a cup of tea? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, actually, let me just grab my camera. And if you've got time, which I know he did, because we all have time at the moment, it's one thing we do have, is like, can I just borrow you for like 20 minutes and we'll get some shots of you making a cup of tea? And he was like, yeah, sure. So we spent the next 20 minutes, half an hour, getting some of these shots, and I got them into editing, and I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is going to be really ridiculous. Like, no one would ever make a cup of tea like this, and it was the worst tasting cup of tea in the world. But it was like, well, why not make something that I set it to a really like over the top drum and bass tune? And it was like, when I finished it, it wasn't, oh, look at this amazing piece of art. It was, well, I had an idea, I filmed it, I edited it, I uploaded it all in the space of like 8 hours. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh, that was really fun. And it pushed my creativity to a point where I was like, maybe I would never have thought to do that. Because when you come home from a day shooting or a day at your day job, you don't want to then film something for you. You don't want to make something for you because you're tired. And I think that whereas on that day, I was like, no, actually, I think I'm just going to make this thing. And I was really happy with it, because it was like, oh, it's just a bit of fun. And the responses I got from that were like, this is hilarious. And I was like, I know. Like, it's so silly.
But, some people will go, oh my God, you just made this thing for fun and it took 8 hours. You loved it, right?
Yeah.
But there's other jobs that you could do, or other pieces of work that would take you 8 hours that you'll resent. And it's that different, it just sparks off something inside of you. And the thing is it's not just even you putting that out there, just watching it. Obviously I really enjoyed it. It was a very short video, but it also made me think, and it sort of grew my mind and made me think outside of the box as well. And, that being on YouTube impacts, loads of people. And that's the amazing thing about creating. And I was saying on the phone to Paul this morning is, but now more than ever, people need your art as much as you think it's irrelevant because of what's going on and people are sort of in survival. It's, to lift spirits, it's to help people get out of this sort of negative mindset that they're in and this downward spiral of unhelpful fear and thought process like that. And that's the wonderful thing about creating something. You do it for you, but so many others get so much out of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you said about people need content now more than ever. If you were to look at YouTube and you were to go onto like the trending pages, you'll find a lot of channels on there have really stepped up their content game, because they're like, actually, more and more people, more than ever, are online. Like, people are on YouTube, just kind of going down the standard YouTube rabbit hole of, I'll click one video and then 3 hours later you'll end up in somewhere completely different. And you might find that if you are just uploading, for me anyway, obviously as a video creator, if I upload something every day or every other day, by the end of quarantine, I might have 50 videos. You know what I mean? And then one day someone might click on my channel and go, oh, that was fun, I'll watch another one. Oh, that was fun, I'll watch another one. Oh, do you know, this reminds me of someone I know needs this kind of content, and that might produce some work for me. And it's not just about being positive, it's about maybe being a bit more productive and realistic, that actually this can be quite a valuable time to keep creating, keep practicing. And you might find that by the end of it, you're a better creator, you're a better sculptor, you're a better hair and makeup artist, you're a better whatever, because you've had the time, because you've been able to just kind of crack on and try and make it work. But it's a very hard mindset to kind of stay in, is the only thing that I would say for me, because we all get it. We all get the rush of kind of, yes, I can do loads today. I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to take my dog for a walk. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to do this. And 2 days later, you're like, I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. And we discussed this the other day, and I'm up or down. I'm all or nothing. I'm up and down. And do you know what? And I've experienced a lot of that. As I said, I think the situation that we're in just magnifies stuff that's already there. But also with the quiet time and isolation time, I think it helps us to recognize that. And I'm certainly learning a lot more about myself. But with that, creativity sort of coming on and then coming off again, I don't know, just from us talking the other day, I just thought that it really made me realize how much I've tried to stuff myself into a box, or not even just a box, but kind of sway towards others' wants and needs. Even my mum, bless her, she's just like, calm down and, don't get too excited. But that's the way I work. And if I didn't get like that, I wouldn't be able to be as creative as I was. But that the surge of creative ideas, and trust me, I have a lot of creative ideas that are not so creative and not great either. But you've got to keep having these ideas for some of them to work. But I think it takes so much energy to sort of get that off the ground. So maybe a bit like with your video that you did, you just kind of hit burnout after that. And of course you ran with it. It took you 8 hours. And I just don't think we're very kind to ourselves and don't actually realize that that's taken a lot out of us, and we do need a bit of time to recover from that and sort of calm down. And I think I certainly burn myself out over and over again, which I try to keep tabs on, because I do these kind of big projects and then I try to continue on as normal without taking the downtime afterwards, because I'm on the high and I'm like, woohoo, but it doesn't last forever, does it? Something's got to give.
No, and I think burnout is a very dangerous point to be at as well, because I'm exactly the same. I think we're very similar in that regard, because I work myself into the ground, and I always, while it's happening, I always think, well, while I still have this mood, I'm going to keep going, because as soon as this mood ends, I know I'm going to get nothing done. So in a day, I might, on a really productive day, I'll be up at 6, I'll be out with the dog at 7, I'll get back at 9, I'll film a video which will take me through till 12, I'll edit that video 12 till 4, then I'll upload it to YouTube, it'll be up there by 5 or 6, and then in the evening I'm like, right, now I can chill out. Or maybe I'll start planning the next video for the next day, and then I'll go to bed and I'll start again. And I know that if I keep doing that, then it's like, right, that's my routine for now. But then when I hit that burnout mark, all of that stops, because it's this absolute kind of almost like euphoric high that you're getting, where you're like, all the ideas are all synapses firing. Then it can almost be a fear. This is something that I struggle with my kind of anxiety and kind of mood disorder, is that it's the fear of coming down. So it's the fear of, oh, what if this doesn't come back? I need to make the most of this now, because if I don't, then I might end up doing absolutely nothing for a week, and I can't afford to do that. So yeah, I think for me, it's definitely a fear of burnout that drives me to keep going, because when it eventually arrives, then yeah, all of that does stop.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. And yeah, I push and push and push myself a lot of the time. And I just try to be, it's easier now to sort of recognize, but I think when you're pushing yourself kind of all the time and you maybe plan to take a break, but then something happens, or you need to go somewhere or do a meeting, or another project lands, or a family member needs you or something, and then you don't have that time. And that's why I think it's so important that we ensure, no matter what, that we put that time in for ourselves and stick to it. Because when I was just writing about this the other day, as soon as workload changes, or we ups a bit and we get more kind of workload in our day, something maybe we weren't expecting, or in our week, the first thing to go is our time. And it's just completely false economy, really, complete false economy, because we're not going to be able to do the work effectively unless we take the time out. And it's this kind of backward thinking, pushing ourselves to the breaking point so that we actually do the job badly when we're pushing ourselves because we don't want to do a bad job. Just backwards, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it really is, because I think when we have to, I think we're always torn, because if, like, having our own businesses as well, it feels like, oh, if I have a day off, I'm going to be missing out. I'm missing out on opportunity. I'm missing out on money, obviously. So I think for sure you can end up pushing yourself to the point of like total depression, really, because before you know it, work is your entire life. And I think that's exactly why now it's even harder than it's ever been, because there is no work. So your entire life is now the opposite. It's the thing you were trying to kind of maybe get away from. So it's made it even harder to just kind of just be content with who you are, because there is absolutely no balance.
Yeah. But as much as it's hard right now, I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn what is motivating them and what is actually driving them. I think we spend a lot of time being sort of swept along.
I think time is a very important factor, and linking it back to what you said before about the mental health aspect. If you fail to manage your time properly, you can very easily end up lost, and you can end up overwhelmed and overworked. And then that inevitable burnout will happen. So that's why, it got to the point where when I was still working a lot, was that it was about managing my time. Certain hours of the day I would dedicate to certain things, and it just meant that you had a bit more of a structure. And I think that structure is the most important thing for me, because without it, I can kind of get just completely lost.
Is there anything particularly that's helped you in kind of coping, finding structure or things that you put in place?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is to force yourself not to abandon your routine, or some routine of any kind. So if it means getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though you've got no reason to be up that early, at least you're awake, because you can then have a normal day. Even if you do nothing during that day, at least you're kind of like, right, if I'm up at 8 and I can have my breakfast, then I know that my day has started. If you don't start your day until midday, then you're not going to want to go to bed at 9, 10, 11 o'clock. You're going to be like, well, I'll stay up till 3 or 4 because I'm not tired, because I stayed in bed so much longer. I think every single person is so different. I know that some people are really afraid of structure and don't like it, which is why they probably work for themselves.
Yeah, I know those people.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I think that's perfectly okay. I think it's just about finding what works for you. And if that means experimenting a bit and trying out something different, then maybe that is the right thing to do. There is no right answer. And I don't think that, I say that I haven't been sticking to a structure, and that is why I've been struggling with my anxiety and any kind of depressive thoughts, because I haven't had a purpose. It hasn't been, I haven't given myself a reason to get up every day for the last week. And
well, I think it got to you the 6th, didn't it, really, as it did all of us. And it's not, you just weren't expecting it. So you had a routine, and your routine was working fine, but someone took that routine away or something. And a lot of us have been in a bit of shock as to, work out how we get that routine back, especially when a lot of the things that were supporting it aren't there anymore. I personally I get bored easily, and I'm aware of that. So trying to get this balanced routine going sort of all the time for months on end just doesn't work for me. And I prefer to work in 7-day cycles. And even so far in isolation, I've really noticed how different the last 7 days were to the other 7 days, and already these 7 days are going to be. And so I was doing 5K runs every day, and I had all the energy for that. And then all of a sudden I just lost it, and I was pushing myself out. I thought, no, I'm not forcing myself to do this anymore. And then I found another little project, and now I was having lions, but then I decided the other week to get up earlier. And I think if you're someone like me, I guess, that gets bored easily but still needs routine, and I believe all of us do, I think cycling yourself and just being intentional for 7 days really helps to keep you on track, and you've still got the knowledge that, you know, you're free to change your mind for the next 7 days, and you can always, it keeps it exciting and it keeps it fresh, I think. And that's what I'm working on at the moment, and generally how I'm working my weeks around, instead of planning ahead, because projecting is always going to put me in a place of anxiety and fear.
Yeah. And I think what I'm on that note, like, I think my routine now is going back to what we said at the very beginning. This whole period is about survival, really. I mean, if you boil it down to what the quarantine is, the reason that we're on lockdown is so that we can live. Like, there's no kind of argument against that. And that has to,
isn't it?
yeah, and that has to come first. And I think that it's very admirable to say, like, I'm going to make some massive changes while I'm on this quarantine, while I'm on this lockdown. But that's not the point of the lockdown. Like, give yourself a little bit more time to actually digest what's going on around you. And if you come out having improved yourself in some way, shape or form, brilliant. That's amazing. But don't forget that the world is really messed up at the moment. And you don't have the same, like, I would argue that none of us really have the same support systems that we had. So the fact that we can't go out and see family and friends, like, that's a huge part of who we are. We're all social creatures. Even the ones, you've seen the memes of, like, the introverts are loving this quarantine because it's exactly the same as what they've always done. And it's like, yeah, but you always did that by choice. It's not a choice anymore to stay indoors and not go out and see people. And that's what struck it for me. So, like, living day by day for me is definitely going to be the best thing that I can possibly do, at least for now. And hopefully that will kind of allow me to have a bit more of an uptick with my mood.
And have you ever really lived day by day up until?
No.
Yeah.
No, I've always been living 6 months down the line. It's always been, if I act now and do this, then by this time next year I'll be here. As opposed to, right, what am I going to do tomorrow? Okay, tomorrow I'll do this one thing, or tomorrow I'll do this one thing.
I think a lot of people are going to realise how much they've neglected themselves and have this time. We'll now start looking at ourselves and looking after ourselves and after the ones that we love. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's, you know, a huge positive we can take from it all.
Yeah, and I think that I touched on it in this video that I made, because it's okay to be feeling like this. Like, this is something that we have never experienced before. I think it's perfectly okay to feel a bit overwhelmed and a bit scared and a bit anxious and even a bit depressed about all of this. But just accepting that is a really big thing, you know, because I think we can fight as much as we want and fight against those feelings and be like, right, I need to just kind of bury it away. But as we've said, there's no distractions right now. This is our reality, and we have to kind of just get on with it. But we also have to accept that this is a really difficult time.
I agree with just all of that. And I think that the big word there is acceptance. And that is, I think, the one word that I have actually very much been working on the last couple of weeks within myself, because I think we're all not as accepting of ourselves and of others and of our circumstances. You know, we're always striving to change things, to either manipulate things or to grow things at the detriment to ourselves, really. And we have no choice at the moment but to be accepting of the situation, because it's out of our control, and accepting of ourselves to feel the way that we do, and maybe eat rubbish food for a couple of days if that's going to happen. You know, maybe have a few extra glasses of wine than you normally would, and maybe forgo exercise because you don't feel like it, or binge Netflix in bed for a couple of days. And you know, it's learning to be okay with that. and accepting, and just accepting it. It's not forever, it's for now.
And and I think that deal with it in your own way, like you said, because it's very easy to and we do it all the time with any kind of, like, social media is always been an issue, and I know this is something that you talked about a lot, over the fact that just how social media does affect your day-to-day life anyway, because you're constantly comparing yourselves to unobtainable people, but even those unobtainable people aren't necessarily happy. So it's all well and good if someone's going, no, we just have to take the positives from this situation and deal with it. That's their way of coping. It doesn't have to be yours. I mean, I saw my girlfriend sent me a clip of where it was a live stream that Joe Wicks did. And he is so kind of bubbly and positive and healthy and on the surface happy. But he was like, look, I had some terrible nightmares last night and I woke up and I was so anxious and really down because this whole situation is so difficult. And it just brought the curtain down on someone who has this perception, this public perception of being constantly up. And I find that so much more helpful than people who are just like, look, I am feeling like shit, but I'm just going to power through. And it's like, well, how about show some weakness? Show a bit of a chink in the armor to show that you're human too. And it's perfectly okay, because I think that there is a public perception of, if you're feeling depressed, don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's obviously support has gotten a lot better over the years for anything to do with like mental health. But if you're talking in general, if someone is upset or is coming across as really down, most people are just like, oh, I don't really want to deal with that. Like, you're going to kill my vibe. You're going to bring me down. And it's like, well, maybe that person just needs a little support. So even the people on the outside who maybe look really strong, like someone like Joe Wicks, maybe they are really struggling. And it's perfectly okay to send a text to someone, especially now, and just say, like, I really hope you're doing okay.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's such a small token of, look, I'm here. Do you want to talk? No? All right then, that's fine. But I'm here. Like, that's that, and that's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, I think, keeping the lines of communication open, particularly now, but hopefully we'll, out the other side of this, we'll realize how important it is to talk and to connect. And a problem shared is a problem halved, as they say, and it's more the value that's exchanged in conversation. I think is, you just have that connection and reassurance with each other that you're feeling the same, maybe.
Accepting what's going on around you and then still making the best out of it. That has to be the way forward. Not to kind of just be like, right, that's not happening, and I'm going to just distract myself completely with everything that's going on. You have to accept both.
Totally. And I've spoken to quite a few people who feel perhaps slightly guilty, in a sense, because they're, I guess, finding ways to cope with it. And that's great. We shouldn't put guilt on ourselves for doing that. Being fearful or feeling guilty like that doesn't serve us, and it's not going to save other people's lives either. And the best thing you can do is keep yourself in a good mindset and help others to do the same. So I think, none of us should feel guilty about looking at the positives and the opportunities to tune back in with ourselves, and the free time that we have to give to others, whatever, we can give. I don't think there's anything wrong, and I encourage focusing on that, and not the negatives, because it doesn't serve anyone.
No, it doesn't do you any favors. But I think just being able to be honest about it as well. Like, if you're having a bad day or you're having a bad week, I think it's okay to tell people that. And I think that there's no reason to hide away from it anymore. Like, without being too cheesy about it, we are kind of all in this together. And it's a really important time for kind of a sense of community, even though we can't go out and physically see each other, So yeah, it's a very weird time to to be alive.
We're muddling our way through, and we're learning each week, each day, and we're getting through. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chit chat today. And keep on creating those amazing videos because they're really good fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. And I think we'll obviously stay in touch.
Of course, you can't get rid of me that easily. You know that.
Even with a global pandemic.
Yeah, even with that, no, I'll always find a way. All right. Thanks so much, lovely. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got some good takeaways from today. And if so, then please do leave a review. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And you can find further insights and tools over at camillacollins.com.